Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of the North Star podcast. Today here we got Sam, a.k.a. my buddy, a.k.a. the Wizard of Physiotherapy. I want to introduce Sam here, and I'm going to have him take over, but I just want him to explain a little bit about himself, why he got into physiotherapy, his story, and I'll hand it off to you, Sam.
Yeah. First, thanks for having me, asking me to join you on this podcast, my first podcast.
First podcast, everyone.
Yeah, you broke my podcast cherry. Thank you for that. So my name's Hakeem. I'm a physiotherapist. I work privately for myself. I got into physiotherapy, it feels like ages ago now. Over 15 years ago, I first got into school, graduated from UBC. Then been working ever since in the Lower Mainland, Vancouver, Mission, and Coquitlam, Surrey. Yeah, it's been a long journey. I actually didn't even think I was going to be a physiotherapist. I was always intending to go to medical school. Want to be a doctor, to be honest with you. And like all failed physicians, I landed my way into physiotherapy. It was actually just like anything good, completely by luck and by chance. I was thinking about different options after medical school. Things were not kind of jiving the way I wanted them to. And I took an opportunity to volunteer at a physiotherapy clinic. And I really just kind of fell in love with the way healthcare was taken about in the physiotherapy world. I like the idea of being involved in someone's care actively, as opposed to the somewhat revolving door system that the medical world had to offer, particularly, physicians, not in a negative way, just I felt like I could be of more use being a part of the medical and physical journey of somebody versus just prescribing medications or being frontline care and then having to divert off into different specialties. And so after that, my interest peaked. I applied for schools in Canada, and I was lucky enough to get into UBC, and the rest is history, as they say.
There's something that's really stood out to me when you said in regard to how something that I value about you too as well is the revolving door thing where, I've been to many other physios or chiros or things like that, and I felt like I wasn't seen in the way of there wasn't that much guidance or there wasn't that much help. And the thing I appreciate about you is I always feel like I'm welcomed. I always feel like I am heard and that you don't rush the situation. I have many clients that have seen you as well. My family members have seen you as well. So that's one thing that I really appreciate you as a physio and just as a person in general. And I know I haven't said that to you before, but now that you bring that up, the one thing that the question that I have though is why do you really believe in that? Because I think what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of people and a lot of physicians and things like that, like you said, that do that. Why do you think that's so popular? But why also do you feel like you had to go the different route with it?
I think simplicity is a very easy sell. I think a lot of times people want quick change. The medication that, helps you reduce your blood pressure. I want a medication to lose weight. I want a medication to take the pain away. I think a lot of times simplicity is an easy sell in the sense that you don't have to work for it. It's there for you. It's accessible reach all the time. And I really just didn't like that model. If you want big changes, you need to do big things. This shit's hard. It's plain and simple. And I think a lot of people come to me with problems or they're at the end of their road, knee pain that's been bothering me for 10 years, shoulder pain that's been bothering me for 5 years. And oftentimes I really just try to delve inside the psyche of an individual and be a guide for them. I don't like to take on an approach where I'm going to be the master of all their problems and I'm going to solve everything for them. More oftentimes than not, you just try to help people, give them the confidence that they can overcome something. And if you can guide them through that process and help them through that process to make them see that, A, if you want to make changes, change is hard and you got to put in the work. If you put in the work, you have my commitment that I will be there with you side by side, helping you out, helping you make the change, helping you stick to it, and then allowing for you to see the fruits of your labor. And I think that's what healthcare is. That's what rehab is. That's what allowing people to see the best of themselves in the worst situations, and then allowing them to come out of that worst in order for them to have this like rebirth of who they are, so they can be better and they can understand that adversity is not going to stop me. I don't have to reach for the closest thing, the easiest thing. I have to work hard if I want to make big changes. And I like being part of that process.
Yeah. And something that really stood out is the fact that, you know, I actually chatted about this in a couple, excuse me. I chatted about this a few times in a podcast 2 episodes ago about instant gratification. And I know that there's a really big misconception that, and again, I do believe it's very important when you are injured, obviously, to go see a physio or go see a professional, get some outside help. But I also really believe in the maintenance of seeing a physio, even when you're per se not injured, right? I think it's something that's super important that will help you actually not get injured. And I want to hear your take on that and your philosophy on that as well, because obviously you see this more than I do when it comes to injuries and things like that, and more specific to injuries. But if you had to give someone a piece of advice where if they were going to go to a physio or go see some sort of physio professional, or let's say just anyone in that field, do you find that's better for them to do usually a monthly kind of visit or just come see when you're injured? Is that like, what would you say that you see a lot in that regards to people when they come see you first?
Yeah, I would say that oftentimes when people come see me initially, there's always a specific problem. People come in with, you know, X problem, and we'll go from there to try to help them fix it or get over it. I rarely have people come to me who are just like, "Hey, I feel great.
Yeah.
Can you just make sure that I continue feeling great?"
That's like me. That's what I come, right? There's sometimes, you know, things that I have an issue with, but I come see you every 3 weeks because like I want to stay
in peak shape,
in tuned. I want to stay in tuned, right? So, and that's the example I wanted to use here, and that's something I just want you to, keep in touch. I just wanted to vocalize that so people understand how my point of view of it with you is, and that you can kind of touch on that as well. So
yeah, I think it's wild to me, absolutely wild, that people will go and maintain their car every 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers. They'll service their, you know, washer and dryer. They'll go and do a regular cleaning of their house. But if you try to talk to someone about, you know, getting in check with their mental health, sleep, their diet, their physical health, it's like a preposterous or like wild idea. I just find it crazy. I always say to people, taking care of your body is an investment in yourself. You know, think about what your 80-year-old self would want, and what are you doing now to help that 80-year-old in the future? And I always stress that to people. Taking care of your body is really important in all aspects. Yeah. I'm privileged enough to have the skills in one arm of that from the physical realm to really push that for people and just say, hey, you know, we just got over a knee injury. You're doing great. You're back to lifting weights, or you're back to walking, or back to hiking, or back to playing sports, whatever it may be. Why don't you come and see me once a month or once every 6 weeks, just to continue making sure that you're doing well? And that could be something as simple as, hey, what are your exercises looking like? What are your workouts looking like? Anything coming up that you want to have questions about? I think more importantly, it's about accountability, about having someone say to you, hey, are you keeping on track? Yeah. You know, you don't necessarily need to go take your car in for an oil change every 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers. And you may not really feel like the detriments of it the first time you miss it. But it's not about that singular action. It's about the habits that can form from that. Oh, I'll just miss that.
And then it goes to the next
and
one.
then it turns into like, oh, I'll just miss the next workout. Oh, I don't need to do my exercises. I feel great. It's okay if I miss this or miss that. And then now you have this like habitual pattern change in your behavior that starts to think that you're not affected by things.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the way we take care of ourselves is so important, and rarely in this world nowadays are you seeing people take that much care into themselves, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Everything's always about this like instant gratification. What I want in front of me right away, that's going to take my attention. And so I really just try to preach that philosophy. Something's wrong, let's fix it. Now you have the tools to fix it, but let's maintain it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't care if Susan lost 10 pounds in 3 months. I want Susan to be in good shape for the rest of her life. So what are the habits that we're planting now? What are the seeds we're planting so we can enjoy kind of the shade of that tree that we build on, right? Who cares if she loses 10 pounds in 3 months, or she feels good, her knee pain goes away for 3 months. If it comes back after 3 months because of bad, habits, I've done shit all. I've done nothing.
It's like the long term, like what can you do for the long term and keep that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's about behavioral changes.
Yeah.
That's not about physically improving someone's pain. Yes, in the short term it is, for sure. But once that's done, that's the real work. Mm-hmm. The idea that, okay, I gotta change the way I'm living, doing in order to be better, in order to feel better for the longevity of my life.
Yeah, and touching on that, I think the misconception when someone goes and sees a physio, and you let me know if I'm not getting it fully, but the misconception is like they come see you, they expect to be fixed now. And like fix now, one session, everything's going to feel good. And then come to the next session, don't do the exercise they give you, and then be fixed on the second session. And I really try to even preach to people that I have sent to you and that we've worked together with on that you also have to do the extra things. It's just like nutrition, right? If the one thing that I really appreciate about Sam too is that he will give you homework to do. And it's just like anything. If you don't do the homework, you can't expect the best results. So basing it off of that, the people that have done, and I always do credit someone for going first. That's a huge step. A lot of people go to that first appointment, you show up, that could be the personal training, it could be reaching out to a coach, it could be going anywhere. That's the first step.
Especially when it's new,
right? But I do say, like, if you are expecting crazy results and being fixed right away, if you don't do the outside things, it's not going to happen as quick as you think, right? But if you do all the things, you show up, you do all the little things that either, talking about this situation here that Sam gives you, then you're going to see that progress. You're going to be pain-free quicker. What do you find that is a common injury or common thing that you tend to see when it comes to people's day-to-day? So I want to touch on a little bit of things that you can advise for the general person, right? I know we're talking to the masses right now. We're talking to everyone has a different thing, but what are some things that you see common in physio or common in day-to-day people that they can start on working on to become a little bit less pain-free if they haven't seen you yet? I know that might be hard to, because you don't have them in front of you, but what are some things that, you would even just recommend, even if it's 3 exercises that you can, recommend to someone that can make their life a little bit less pain-free?
Honestly, I'll make it really easy. I know it's old-fashioned, or maybe not so old-fashioned, but it's likely said, or you've likely heard it. Sitting is the new smoking, so to speak. Most of our life, and especially this generation now, with the advent of phones and social media and computers and driving, we spend a lot of time sitting. Sitting at our jobs, sitting to Netflix and chill. Driving, we sit all the time. Yeah. And I think if there's, forget 3 things. So when I first graduated and I was working, I thought, man, I'm going to fix everybody. And I'm going to give all these exercises and everyone's going to feel like amazing.
But you're very naive sometimes to think that everybody has all that time, or you can give someone 5 or 6 different exercises and they're going to make it. It's not about that. I always focus now on what is the easiest path for me to help someone start to get on track. That's really important to say, because it's not about convincing them that it's going to be easy, because it's not easy. It's about what is the easiest way to get them to buy in. It's the buy-in that's important for me. So I always focus on what's the easiest thing that this person can do in front of me? Where am I going to make them focus on the idea that it's consistency over intensity? I don't need them sweating buckets. I don't need them going 0 to 100 balls to the wall. I need them just to be committed to a consistent regimen of something that makes them better. I would say nowadays, if you really want to just take care of your health in general, if you walk 30 to 60 minutes every single day, you would literally do amazing things for your life. You're upright, you're putting steps in, you're getting sunlight, you're getting fresh air, you're upright, you're moving, blood flow, good for heart health, a fantastic way to break the barrier of I don't feel like I'm doing anything to I'm committed to one thing every day.
Yeah.
You don't need any equipment. It doesn't cost anything.
Low intensity.
And it's low intensity.
Yeah.
And the best part is it just gets you out there doing something. Now, where that takes you, hey, walking's easy. I don't want to do 30 minutes. I want to do 45. 45 is pretty easy. I want to do 60. Hey, I bought an Apple Watch and I closed the loop.
Yeah.
I want to close the loop for 10 days in a row. Oh, I want to close the loop for 30 days in a row. Oh, I want to walk with my partner or my kid, my dog.
Yeah.
I just want to go. Maybe that turns into I want to swim. I want to hike. Oh, I feel good. Man, it's amazing how just feeling good about yourself spawns this like level of change. It's almost like you feel committed to yourself. Like, I don't want to let myself down. I think the moment people start to love themselves, you start to treat yourself like you would your closest friend or your loved one.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. That to me is real healthcare. People talk about physio and rehab. No. I just want to make someone feel like, hey, you got it in you. The barriers are not what you think they are. You don't have to be lifting weights 3 times a week and squatting. You may get there.
Yeah.
But who cares right now? Right now, let's just get that knee moving. Oh, you can't walk because it hurts? Let's bike. You can't bike? Let's swim. I got a million people all the time telling me, I can't do this or I can't do that or it hurts me this way.
Can you do this?
Yeah. And I'm like, but can you do that?
Yeah.
And you can do this. When you reduce it all down to its most primal level, do you want it or do you not?
Yeah.
If you want it, man, I will run through a fucking brick wall for you.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, I'm not your fucking babysitter.
Yeah. So
you have to come to grips with the fact that it may not happen if you are not committed to the cause. I can't make it happen for you.
Yeah, we'll give you all the tools. We'll give you all the steps, but...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a facilitator.
Yeah.
That's my job. 90% of my job is education.
Yeah.
Someone comes in, they say, I got a knee problem. All right. I ask questions. When does it hurt? When do you feel better? How did you hurt it? I get a lay of the land of what this possibly could be. Mm-hmm. Then I physically touch them to do some testing with their consent, of course.
Nowadays, yeah. We go another topic there, but yeah.
And then from there, I get a general idea of what's going on. Yeah. After that, what I lay down for them is the real therapy. It's what they're paying for. What is the problem that I have, and how can I fix it, or how can I manage it? And then that's where I say, here are some tools, here are some avenues. And that's, I think, where I come to an impasse with some people. Mm-hmm. Because some people will say, okay, give me everything you got. I want to get better. Love working with those people. They're easy to work with. They're the self-starters. The fire is already there.
Yeah.
You just got to douse it with gasoline.
Yeah, throw on some gasoline and...
But some people don't know where the fucking firewood is.
Yeah.
Like it's empty.
Yeah.
And you really got to get in there and tell them, no, we can do this. You can do this. I don't care if your knee pain has been for 20 years, right? Because here are all the things you haven't been doing for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you know, one day starts today.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, you probably have someone, like you just said, comes to you after 20 years with knee pain and they expect it to be gone in 2 sessions.
Oh, I wish that could happen. I tell them all the time. I mean, I know you called me the wizard in the beginning here. Like, you know, contrary to what many people may think, I'm actually not a wizard. If I was, I'd charge a whole shit more than I do. But that's not how it goes. I wish I could do that. You know, and like complete, like as a sidebar, I think that's one of the things I hate about social media nowadays. This idea of, like you said, the instant gratification. If you do these 2 exercises, you're going to be fixed. No, you fucking won't. No, you won't. Right? It's not that simple. It's just not that simple.
And so I know regarding, we talked about walking, is there any banded exercise or even bodyweight exercises, again, not that'll fix someone, but if they do it continuously, they'll start to see changes either in their posture or their pain? Like I know, let's just touch on, because this is what I see a lot: low back pain, knee pain, and would be forward shoulder be a something that you see? Like, well, let's say those 3 things, right?
Yeah.
What are 3 exercises you can do? Because those are very common that you probably see. You probably see those 3 things a lot. Like totally forward here in the neck, like totally rounded over, you know, you have knee pain, you have low back pain. Like those are 3 things I even hear all the time from people when I'm training, right? When it comes to more specific, I'm like, hey, go see Sam.
Yeah.
He has more knowledge around it. But what's like 3 things banded wise that somebody can do if that's what they're experiencing right now?
Yeah. For the general population, public.
General. Yeah.
I would say number 1, squat, bodyweight squat. It could be a free squat. It could be a sit to stand from a chair. It's a very functional compound exercise. It's whole body and it's adaptable to everyday life. Getting on and off a toilet, sitting in and out, getting in and out of a car, sitting in and out of a chair. You're always doing some form of sitting to standing. Keeping that mobile is healthy for your ankles, your knees, your hips, your back, your core, everything. And it's a great way for you to command your body weight. Number 2, I would say laying on the ground on your stomach. It's called the prone position. Laying your hands out like a T and just doing T raises. So you're face down, hands are out, and you're lifting your arms up without lifting your head off the ground. Great way to work your upper back muscles, your rear delts, your mid back. And it's a fantastic way to keep your thoracic spine extended. In other words, basically making sure that your mid back isn't as rounded. It's a great way to combat that with all the stuff that we do on the phone, on a computer, sitting in a desk, so on and so forth. And then the last exercise I would say is a glute bridge.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, trust in the thrust, as I say, right? The thrust is a must. Just a fantastic way to work hamstrings and the glutes, what I like to call the posterior chain. If anybody who's come and seen me, I preach about the posterior chain and how important it is. That being, you know, the muscles of the back, the muscles of your mid back, the muscles of your rear delts, your hamstrings, your calves, your glutes. Very, very underrated and underserviced parts of our body. Because again, we're spending so much time upright, rounded, we're spending so much time sitting, rounded. We just neglect some of those muscles. Those 3 exercises, I would say, if you could do 3 for the rest of your life for a general population, we're not talking about getting into the gym or anything. Those would be the 3 that I do. And you want to make them harder, you just add weight to them. Or add bands. So you can increase the difficulty by adding resistance or adding load. You can increase difficulty by increasing the number of times you do them in one sitting. You can increase the difficulty by increasing the number of times you do them for the whole week or for the day. So exercises don't need to change. You can just vary the parameters and make them more challenging or less challenging depending on your physical capabilities. But those three would be the three that I would say are my go-to.
Based off those exercises and what we're talking about general population, do you find that most of the people you see kind of go into that category? I know you see a variety of people. I know.
Yeah.
We've chatted obviously a lot, not in this setting, but we've chatted a lot over the years on, different individuals, different athletes, different general population, different jobs. Do you find there is a certain specific population that you tend to see more? And if so, what is it? And also, what is your favorite population, or what is your favorite thing? Like when somebody comes to you and they're like, I have this, or I want to achieve this, what do you get? Like, what do you get the most purpose out of that situation?
Well, let's answer the first part. I have a very varied caseload because I work in different parts of the Lower Mainland. So I see a huge conglomerate of people. I see young, old, active, sedentary, some athletes, some weekend warriors. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint the majority of the people I see. I would say if I was forced to answer, I would probably say the majority of people I see are everyday working people between the ages of, I would say, 20 to 50, everyday individuals.
Like
like
special cases.
Yeah, like you and me.
Yeah.
People like you and me, right? As far as favorite population to work with,
what is the most like?
I can tell you who I hate. No.
Like most purpose, because I believe that even in my line of work, you have purpose in every situation or every person that you meet and that you work with. But what like really gets you? Like if you had, that was your main subject of people, and that was something that you really could see that you could make a difference in. What would be something that really stood out to you?
I'd probably say the people that really give me the most satisfaction are those difficult cases that usually start with someone who just never thought they were going to get better.
They thought they were injured for life.
Yeah, they just thought that this was them. That's it. Like someone had just written it out for them that they were just never going to do well. I feel so grateful that someone like that even has kind of the bravery to walk into an appointment and try to get some help. Because even if they think it's worthless or they're never going to get better, the fact that they come in for an appointment, I think at the very least tells you there's something still alive in there that makes them think, okay, maybe I can get better.
Yeah, maybe this time. Like
maybe this time.
Yeah.
But the maybe is filled with such little hope because they've had so many maybes before that they just haven't succeeded and they give up. But still not enough that they're not going to try. And I take it very seriously when I'm someone else's maybe last try or next try.
Yeah.
I love those opportunities. I love that challenge to see if I can just help that person. Excuse me. Because most of the time, it's not something like... Sorry.
It's all right.
Most of the time, it's not the problem that's complicated. It's just letting them understand that you can overcome this. You just need a plan.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't listened to. Maybe
they were what we talked about, the quick in and out.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, you have this crack, or maneuver. 5 minutes gone.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody just spent the time to be like, hey, tell me about how you feeling. Yeah. What's going on? What are you thinking? Where are your barriers? Where do you see yourself struggling? How can I help you with that? Yeah. I love that opportunity because I really feel like if you just give people the time, you can help a lot of people.
And I really appreciate that. Like I said about you, and I had mentioned that about you taking the time with people to actually get to understand them. I know that my mom and my grandma have seen you, and they have really appreciated that about you. But also to my grandma, that was a big one for me, because she's very resistant on change, because of, as you age, there's
Get stuck in your ways a little bit.
yeah. And it was a really big thing that with trying to convince her to go see someone. And even as a family member, sometimes it's the hardest part is to actually convince your own family members.
Yeah.
Even though you are the professional. I've been doing this for, like about 8 years now. You've been doing physio for
Over 10 years.
yeah, and you probably still butt heads with your family sometimes about.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though you've been doing it and you've probably helped thousands of
My
people.
mom still wants me to go to medical school.
Yeah. Right, but and that's the one thing that I really appreciated about you, is that you made it comfortable enough for them to come back. Right? And that was something that really stood out to me. That I even had sometimes issues in the past when I've gone to other appointments, where you're like, hey, I have this issue. And they're like, oh, okay, lie down. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, okay, now you're on your way. And you're like, but I wasn't even, there was no explanation. I don't understand like what you actually did with me. I don't understand like, how is this going to actually help me? There's no like exercise that we're done. And I've never had that issue with you. And that's something I really appreciate about you, Sam. And I really want to make it clear for people too that there are people out there to help you. There are people that are willing to take the time to do so, and that's another big part of why I wanted to have you on, is because I wanted to show people there are other people like that. Right? I can speak for myself. I can sit here on this podcast and talk about all my experiences, talk about the person that I am and how I help people, but I really want to also show people there are other people like that out there that are willing to be a guidance and be someone that's, that's not just going to brush you off. Right. And,
sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I was going to say, healthcare is what we do. It's what I do.
Yeah.
But we're really in the service industry.
For sure. No, 100%.
Right. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you for your problems, for your injuries, for your pain. And I think that sometimes gets confused when you get into healthcare as a professional. This idea that like, no, I'm just going to solve it.
Yeah.
So, whoa, wait a second. Yes, they came in with X problem, but what are the other factors? Sometimes someone will come in. I know I'm using knee pain as the common example. Let's say shoulder pain.
Yeah.
Someone comes in with shoulder pain. Sometimes it just takes a few questions and getting to know the individual before you realize, what? A big part of this person's shoulder pain is they just have a lot of barriers for them to be active.
Yeah.
There's no real injury here. They've just never focused on themselves. Now, yes, I'm a healthcare provider. But if I see myself as I'm in the healthcare industry, all I'm focused on is like, okay, I'm going to fix that shoulder. Massage it, I'll gun it, I'll needle it, I'll do adjustments, throw you some exercises. It's like, yo, let's just back up a little bit here. One of the things I always like to do is I just like ask a bunch of questions. Let's get to know who this person is. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And you start to realize, okay, well, they never hurt their shoulder. They never had a fall. They never had issue from birth. Okay. Well, how long has it been hurting you? Oh, 5, 7, 10 years. Could be 5 months, whatever. Okay. So injuries just don't come out of the blue.
Poof.
Right? Then you start to realize, hey, maybe it's this person's posture.
Oh.
Hey, this person used to work out before, then they just stopped working out. Why? Oh, I had a kid. Work got busy. Something happened in my family. Oh, okay. Great. Tell me more about that. Like, what stopped you? What's in your way now of getting back to that? And the killer is always, how'd you feel back when you were active? I felt great. Did you ever need to go see anybody? No. But there's the solution's right there.
Yeah.
This person doesn't need me to put tens and heat on their back or their shoulder or their knee or whatever. It's a cry for help when they're coming. How can I serve this person? Okay. How do I find the minimum threshold to get them back?
Yeah.
What's going to bring them back to that buy-in? I just need to let them have a taste of what it feels like to be back who they were. That's not an injury. That's not an assessment. That's listening.
Yeah. And when you say this too, it really reminds me of a lot of the times nowadays we don't have a lack of information on what to do.
Yeah.
Most of the times it's like,
it's an abundance.
Yeah. So it's most people, like if you tell them, like, even when I talk about nutrition or a physical activity, like most people, strength training is going to be important. Walking is going to be important. Eating enough protein is going to be important. Eating enough fruits and vegetables is going to be important. But a lot of the times it's not even that is the issue. It's the mental barrier.
The execution.
The execution of it, right?
Yeah, that's the difficult part.
And that's where I think people sometimes get the misconception of that a lot of the time it's not even us giving an information and being like, do this. It's like we show that we care. Like sometimes that's all someone needs. Yeah. It's like, hey, we care about you. We want, like, start just doing this one thing.
Yeah, this person's committed to me.
Yes.
They ask me a question. They actually want to hear what I have to say versus get on the table, like you said, boom, 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 get out of here. I'll see you. Book 2 times a week for 6 weeks. The person just leaves.
Have a good day.
Yeah, have a good day. The person just leaves and goes, what just happened?
Yeah. Right. And that's where I really try to, and I would love to hear your thought on this too. But for me personally, when somebody comes to me and they're like, well, I know I need to strength train. I know I need to eat like this. I've done all these diets. I've done this. I'm like, okay, let's slow down here. Yeah. Let's do 1 or 2 things first.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let's just get the ball rolling slowly. And from the sounds of it, that's also something that you do. You're not just like, somebody comes in, they're like, I have shoulder pain, I have knee pain, I have low back pain, I can't sleep at night, I did that. And then you're just like, whoa, okay, let's slow down. Let's work on the one thing first.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think what I tend to see is when you're trying to work on a million different things and trying to solve a million different problems, you might have just had to actually solve one problem, which then would have helped you with 3 other problems.
For sure. And more oftentimes than not, you're dealing with somebody where you're like, they're coming in and saying, I have this and this and this and this and this. The unsaid truth there is they're asking for this magic pill.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm coming here because maybe you have that one thing that's just going to let me get cured of everything. And I feel like sometimes I got to be the reality check to be like, actually, do you know what the one common issue and problem is with all of these things? It's you. You're the issue. You're the commonality. You're the tied link between all of this stuff. This idea of outsourcing our problems to other people to fix rather than looking inward to saying, what am I doing?
Like, what am I doing every day, day in and day
to make things worse?
Yeah.
I think that's the first step. Those people, now you go in there and be like, hey, you did the hard part. Because if you know what you're doing is bad, we can work on how to make it better.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. The simple part is telling you what to do or working together on what you need to do to be successful. And then the real hard part is the execution. How committed are you to this? How consistent are you going to be with this? Or are you going to come back next week and tell me, oh, on Monday I couldn't do this because my daughter had a recital. Oh, on Tuesday I couldn't do this because I got back late from work. Okay. You know, they tell me this stuff like I'm going to be disappointed. I'm not disappointed. I'm like, I know myself. Yeah. I know what I got to do for me. You should be disappointed. This is your life. I'm facilitating your ability to achieve your own success. I can't give you success. I can help you facilitate it. Or I can facilitate you giving success to yourself, you chasing after it. But if you're going to make excuses, it just tells me that you're not making yourself a priority.
Yeah, and I get that too, where somebody's like, I didn't do this. I don't want to make you I don't want to make you feel like they're telling that.
I don't want to make you feel bad. I'm like, you pay me. You don't make me feel bad. I'm happy.
But also too, the only person that's harming is you, the individual.
Absolutely.
Like if you don't go exercise and work out that day, that doesn't affect me as the individual at the end of the day, right? You know, don't get me wrong. Things come up, okay? Emergencies, things come up.
Absolutely.
You know, like we get that. We're not saying that every single day is going to be moving the needle forward by times 15.
Yeah.
But the basis of this is that we are here to try to support. We are here to try to be someone that, hey, you know what? Once I've done this consistently for myself, what can we do now next?
Yeah.
Right. And giving those small steps. And I really want to make things clear, and I want you to jump on this too, is that we're not saying this because we, like I said, we don't, it's not that we're saying this because we don't care. It's because the reality is no matter who's going to come in your life to help you, it's always going to have to be you at the end of the day that makes the choice.
Yeah, you have to care the most.
Yes.
You have to care the most. I agree with you. You're right. I know. And definitely I can float outside of myself and look at myself and be like, man, this guy's an asshole. But the reality is, if you don't take priority of your stuff, and if you don't put yourself first, it's hard to help. You're hard to help. You become a hard person to help. That's, I think, the irony of it. You're seeking help, but your actions make you difficult to help. Mm-hmm. And I think people get stuck in that perpetual cycle. Yeah. Because it's hard. It's hard work to commit yourself to something consistent. It's hard because it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, and we and I'll speak for both of us, but let me know if I say anything. But we care. We do as people care, but there's to an extent where it's if the individual or yourself is not willing to do the things, there's also a point where we have to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, hey, like I see that you're only willing to do this.
Yeah.
You're showing up, you're doing something, that's good. But if you want to see more, this is what you're having to willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
But you're showing up, you're doing at least something. If you were doing nothing before, now you're doing something. You're still coming to see us. But we also have to be honest and say that if you come to us and say, well, I'm not reaching this. Okay, well, have you been actually going towards that direction? Have you been doing the things outside of here?
Yeah, expectation management is really important. I had a client, I remember one time came to me and said, I don't want any exercises. When I come here, you make me feel good. I'm okay with that. I said, great. Like, are you sure? Because you could literally come once every month or once every 6 weeks if you do this one thing.
Yeah.
And then you just catch yourself and go, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't force it to drink. They made their decision. Now I respect it. It's my duty to tell them that there's other aspects here. And you just go about your day. And I was joking before about like, clients I really just don't like treating. It's not that like I don't like treating them. Yeah. Of course, I don't not like treating anybody. I treat everybody equally. But sometimes it just like sucks when someone comes in and you just like turn off your brain. Yeah. I like a good problem.
Yeah, you like something to solve.
I love it. I love it, man. I love a good problem to solve. there's nothing that gives me a better high than someone coming and going, oh man, you know that treatment that you did or that exercise you gave or that plan you set up, it's really working. I feel great. I remember when you came to see me for your elbow.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, I've been having this issue back when I was
Dude,
playing
I was
baseball.
told I couldn't lift. Remember I told you
Yeah.
this story? I was told by a professional I can never lift a weight
Yeah.
upper body ever again.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, like, I was like, what? Like, I came to you, I was like, dude, this is what I was told.
And I love that. I'm like, okay, hold my beer, challenge accepted. Like, and you were saying to me, oh, my finger gets numb, and I had this problem when I was playing baseball, and I can't throw it. It really hurts me. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're getting down to the problem. We're having conversations about, okay, talk to me. When did this start happening? And how did it happen? And what to do? And then examining your body as a whole. How is the shoulder connected to the elbow? The mid-back connected to the shoulder? Now, I'm lucky because you're in the fitness industry. So, you know, buy-in is already there.
Yeah.
But the conversations started to build on one another. The treatment started to build on one another. The trust, which is really important, started to build on one another. Then all of a sudden, you know, you're coming to me saying, man, I'm throwing a ball. I'm barely getting any numbing. I didn't think this was possible. Man, I get a high off of that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the best. That's the best. That's why I love my job. That's what makes me love my job. Because you're just like, yeah, this person had a buy-in. They had a problem. You worked together. You solved it. Sometimes it doesn't work as beautifully as a perfect solution. But sometimes the real reality, I would say more oftentimes than not, is that they come back and they say, I have power to manage my problem. I know I have this, but I know what I can do to get around it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone comes in, they're like, oh, I have arthritis. I always say to them, arthritis is just a fancy word for age-related wear and tear. You have arthritis the moment you're born, and it just gets worse and worse as you get older. But what are you doing to work around that? Are you getting strong around your bones? Are you eating right? Are you staying active? Yeah, you may have arthritis, but don't succumb to the things that you cannot control and fall under the illusion that you have no control. You have control, but what you need to focus on is control the things that are within the grasp of your control. Can you get up 3 times a week and commit yourself to going to the gym? Can you commit yourself to walking every day? Can you commit yourself to adequate sleep, good nutrition? Those are within your control. What your body does, what your genetic does, not in your control. Don't worry about it. One can essentially balance out the other. And as long as you're working to live your life in some level of harmony, there's going to be ups and downs. All you got to do is just control the ebbs and the flow to keep yourself consistent throughout the longevity of your life, which is why I always preach consistency over intensity. To me, the person in the gym or walking daily, consistently, is better than the person doing 2-a-day workouts for 3 months.
Yeah, and you know, I want to. There's a few points here that I just want to backtrack a little bit on, and I want to talk about my story a little bit too, because to relate to this situation. But you know, the issue with my elbow too didn't take 2 sessions.
No.
and I think the big thing here is people have
We
to
work on it to this day.
Yeah, and I've been seeing, I've probably been here 5 years at least, seeing you 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And people have to understand, I've been seeing Sam for 5 to 6 years, for 3 weeks, every 3 weeks for the last 5-6 years. Again, I do this because this is what I believe in to maintain my exercise, my physical activity, my stress, everything. I find it helps with that. Does everyone have to do that? No. But I do find that does work for me. And in all honesty, I bet if somebody probably came to you once a month to maintain, even when they don't have injuries and things like that, they'd probably be better off long term with staying consistent with that. The other point too, going back on, you know, what you had the example of the client who came to you and they're like, I don't want any exercises. If that is you and that's what you want to do, that is 100% okay.
Yes.
But if you came and you asked us that and then said, but I want like this and this, and I want these results, that is also contradicting to what you asked for as well.
Absolutely. Expectation management, like we said.
Yes.
You know, like you're absolutely right. I agree with you. I mean, it's like this, it's like the car example with the oil change. Like if you have a car and you're driving it 100 kilometers a day, you're going to need to service that car a lot more frequently.
You put fuel in it, you're going to have to add things to it for sure.
But let's say you have a car, but you only work 5 kilometers away. I mean, theoretically speaking, you could probably go for one oil change a year. Now, nothing's going to happen to that car, but that's your circumstance.
Yes.
So that client coming to me saying, you know, I don't want any exercise. I just want the treatment because the treatment makes me feel good. You're absolutely right. And you know, I'm not trying to shame anybody here. That person's circumstances could maybe allow them to say that. And I would say there's opportunities for you to possibly be a little bit better or further reduce your potential risk. But at the end of the day, it really is just more about understanding what they want and providing some type of balance. But at the same time, offering them, there are options here. You can choose what you want.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of want to touch to, based off of this conversation of health and, you know, prioritizing things. I also want to chat a little bit about our story on how we met, but also to the conversations we've had as individuals on how our health has changed. And by that changing, how we can help more people. I know that we've had conversations in regarding to certain nutrition things, but how has that really changed your point of view on either how you start to help people differently, or but how you start to feel as an individual, which inherently can help more people if you feel better? Like, where did that kind of fine line and balance really affect you when we started chatting more in regards to that?
Yeah, you know, you were really helpful to me with respect to all the miscellaneous things surrounding my own exercise and health habits, particularly nutrition. I think that's where I always had a weakness. A big part of it was accountability, the time, and to be consistent with meals and to consistent with protein intake and whatnot. And the other part of it was, you know, I realized that I was in a, you know, as we mentioned, I worked in healthcare. I had to represent, I should represent some image of good health. It's hard for me to sell an idea of consistency, being committed, fitness, if I'm not one living that life.
Yeah.
And not from a standpoint of selling something, from the standpoint of my own health. And so it was really important for me to like seek your advice and seek your guidance with respect to like, hey, what should I be taking? What should I be doing? I would frequently send you, you know, videos of workouts or certain lifts. Hey, can I get your pointers? Can I get your tips? It is really important for me to get a sense of, okay, I got to take command of certain things so I can essentially live what I'm preaching.
Yeah.
Or else you're a fraud. You're living in a fake world. Right? You're living in a 3 sets of 10 world, as I like to call it. 3 sets of 10 everything, you know? You have to customize things for yourself, but you also have to understand like what works for you, and you have to commit yourself to a process of good health, because at the end of the day, we are representations of that.
For sure.
Nobody's going to come and see you if you're out of shape or you're not taking care of yourself or if you're limping around. It's negligent.
Yeah, and the misconception with supplement intake or nutrition and things like that is a lot of the advice that people tend to give, they haven't even tried themselves.
Absolutely.
Like I'll talk, for example, let's just on topic on supplements. The amount of times I used to work at a supplement store way back in the day, but the amount of times people would come in and ask me like, what do I think of this supplement? I would have to give them an honest answer and be like, I have no clue. I've never taken it.
Yeah.
And also, too, there's some that I've taken that I don't believe in.
Yep.
And that's where that integrity comes within. And when me and Sam chatted, the only two things, and probably the best things in regards to the supplements, was a protein powder to try to get more protein in as a tool, and taking creatine. And that's what I want people to understand is I wasn't like, hey Sam, I want you to take this and this and this stack and this, and then he spent $1,000 on supplements.
Yeah.
We were like, let's grab two of the basic supplements that I probably am not seeing that you're taking into your diet, right? Let's use these as tools, and let's help you actually maximize those results with those two things.
Yeah, the execution was up to me. Waking up every morning and saying, okay, I'm going to commit myself to 1 scoop of this daily. There's my protein shake in the morning. There's my additional 50 grams of protein that I'm having. Now it's up to me to say, okay, what are my meals throughout the day? How much am I increasing my intake? And then just committing to that consistently. I'd love to take it for a week and then have calves bigger than yours and have like a shredded six pack. That'd be amazing. But that's not how it works. And I'm okay with that. I think as I've gotten older, I just love the grind. I love waking up every morning and challenging myself to something.
It's a process.
Because it's a process.
Yeah.
You fall in love with the process. I'm teaching my daughter how to read right now, and it's funny, sometimes she gets upset if she gets something wrong. And I always say to her, I'm like, I don't care about right and wrong right now. I want you to fall in love with learning. I want you to get obsessed with the process of getting better. You get something wrong, who cares? Let's figure out how to make it right. Because you're always going to fail. There's always failure. Failure's always going to be there. There's erasers on pencils for a reason. It's always there. But how do you bounce back from that? How do you learn from that? How do you try again? How do you get up and go, okay, I did something wrong. How can I fix it? The testament is how much of that can you take and still keep going forward?
I want to touch on, you mentioned your daughter, and I was very fortunate enough to meet your daughter and your wife today, actually, for the first time, and you having us in your home. So I want to thank you about that too.
Of course.
But I also want to touch on that because I know a lot of people out there are parents and they have kids or they have a kid and they find routine hard. And you're someone who has a job, you have a family, you still go to the gym, you still do the things, you're a sibling, you know what I mean? Like you have a lot of priorities outside of just this physical. How do you do it? Like, how do you as the individual, I know your daughter's 4 years old,
yep.
Right? So 4 years ago, obviously it was different.
Yeah.
That changes, right? Like,
I don't even remember what that life is like.
So how did all that transition for you so you're able to do these things and still show up and still, do your fitness, but also focus on your mental? Like, how do you juggle all that as a parent? Because I know there's going to be a lot of parents that listen to this. And what's some pieces of advice as a parent that you have for the parents out there that are, maybe struggling to find consistency?
Yeah, I would say, number one, my wife and I, we just really communicated clearly over what was our priority in terms of when we became parents. We wanted to be active, stay active. That was really important to us. That was number one, just communicating your priorities and understanding, okay, what are you going to put first? Some people, it's Netflix. Some people, it's, childcare. Some people, it's work or whatever it is. One of our things was we were both very fit before in terms of gym or hiking, walking, whatnot. And we just wanted to carry that on so we could be an example for our kid in terms of what is important, what is healthy, and what is something that you want to commit yourself to in life. I think number two is just being kind to yourself, understanding that your life is changing. It's big change. Yeah, you may not be in the gym 5 days a week. Your workouts may change a little bit, but that doesn't mean you can't take a step back, figure out your landscape, and then get back to where you were. When my daughter was first born, it was really hard to do a lot of things at the gym. And so I did a lot of home workouts with my wife. that was great. It was awesome. It was a great time for us to bond, and our kid would just watch us do this stuff. We walked every day. Put her in the stroller, walk. To this day, one of the things I love to do with my daughter is we just go for a walk, go to the park, get outside, do things, be active. I think people have this like narrow-minded idea of what fitness is. This idea that fitness is CrossFit, fitness is the gym. Fitness is a lifestyle. It's commitment. It's just being active. And so we started small, and I built from there. And as my daughter got older, you fall into a specific routine with your kid, and then you find the pockets in the day to work around it. It could be super early morning. It could be late night workouts with your partner, but you commit yourself. And so for me, 3 to 4 days a week, I go get after it. The other days, I just find something to do, whether it's walking, whether it's just going out to play with my daughter, anything simple. I just tried to simplify my life as much as I can and understand that for me, it's about consistency. I want to adhere to a consistent plan. I can't do the things I used to do because I don't have the time for it, but I can take the time that I do have and find ways to be consistent within that plan. And that for me was kind of the biggest game changer. It unlocked a lot of things for me. It allowed me to be a little bit more committed to myself in a healthy way.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that will really help a lot of people understand a perspective from a parent, because I can't speak on being a parent. I can only speak from hearing what other people say as a parent.
Yeah.
That happened. About 2 podcasts ago, episode 5, me and my buddy, we don't have any kids, right? So we were only talking about what we have heard from people, right? And I also want to touch on something we had chatted about. Actually, there was the question of, how do priorities change once you have a kid, right? Like, I hear you don't understand being a parent, you don't understand the love you have for a kid, or the love that until you actually are a parent. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But how have you felt that your priority has changed within that, now having a kid? Let's say, and we use the example of, let's say, you had a workout that was planned, right?
Yeah.
But your daughter's sick. You had to do, how would you have pivoted? And we talked a lot about pivoting as a parent. Again, we're not parents, but we were just speculating on how could you pivot?
Yeah.
I want to ask you now, someone who is a parent, how would something like that for you be able to pivot from that situation if that happened? Or would you just disregard it, not do the work? Like, how would that look for you?
Yeah. I think the biggest transition is you go from selfish to selfless, and not selfish in a bad way. Selfish is a good thing. It's good to be selfish. You need to be selfish sometimes. Selfish to put yourself at first, take care of your health. That's not a bad thing. When you have a kid, it just becomes a lot more selfless. You're responsible for another human being. As far as how to pivot, I think for me, I just say, hey, it's not gonna happen today.
Mm.
But you know what? There's tomorrow. I'm gonna get after it tomorrow. And tomorrow's workout, I'm gonna do 3 extra sets, or a couple of extra reps, or I'm gonna push myself that much harder. Kind of like a balance sheet.
Yeah.
Right? Fuck it. Today's done. My daughter needs me. That's more important.
Mm-hmm.
But tomorrow I'll get after it. Tomorrow may not work, but you'll get after it the day after. As long as you wake up the next day with that commitment and you hold yourself accountable to it, you're going to be successful. The moment it just becomes, oh, it's okay. Oh, kids, can't find the time. You know how it is. I told myself I was never going to be that person. Never. Because my kid needs me to be active. Take care of myself. That's how I'm going to be a better dad for her. That's how it changes now. You're not in the gym for aesthetic goals. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that looks good. Every time I get my wife's eyes to light up, that's exciting. But now it's about fitness. Now it's about, I want to be in good shape. I want to be active. I want to be healthy because someone relies on me.
Yeah.
I want to live for that person. So it's not as superficial as, oh, I missed a workout. It's like, no. I got my whole life here. It's about consistency, right? I'm going to get back on it. It's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. And I like that because we had chatted a little bit about how pivoting nowadays is actually can bring you true happiness in the way of, if something happens like this, right? It could even be, and the example that I used, because as I've talked to parents over the years, it could be, let's say, usually when a kid is sick, they all fall asleep at some point. Could be doing 10 squats in a row, 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, done. That is what your pivot is.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're moving the needle forward.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't mean the needle has to go, like I said, crazy for it. Could be 0.0001%.
Absolutely.
But it's going in the right direction. And
sometimes the pivot isn't even physical.
Yeah.
Sometimes the pivot is,
am I okay with this?
I put my kid to sleep.
Yep.
I'm sitting down. I'm just taking a big, deep breath, processing the day. And I'm saying to myself, hey, it's okay you didn't get to what you got to today because there's something more important. Because you're living for somebody else right now.
Yeah.
So you forgive yourself. You love yourself. You wake up the next morning and you're like, yeah, I can wake up 30 minutes before she wakes up. And I'll do those 20 push-ups, 20 squats, 20 sit-ups. Then I start my day. Yeah, like you said, yeah, you move the needle a little bit. Who cares? It moved.
It moved. That's the big thing.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what life is. It's just one foot in front of the other. And all you care about is the next step. Right? I forget the destination. It's the journey.
Yeah.
Right? I sound like a fucking fortune cookie, but it's true though. It is really true. If you focus too much on the destination, you lose sight of how beautiful the process is.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, and there was a big touch on, the reason why I'm bringing it back is because me and my friend aren't parents, and I really want to kind of touch on that subject because, again, as myself, I have talked to a lot of people that are parents, so I have a gist of understanding what situations can come up, but I do not have the understanding of what it actually is to have a physical little human being running around doing this, like being sick. So what we did is we just chatted about the situation that we've heard from, and I really wanted to hear your side of it because it's actually from someone who experiences day in and day out. It's something that you live. It's your life. It is literally your life. You have a daughter. Like it is, each day is going to be different. They're not always going to be 100%. They're not always going to want to do something. There's going to be lessons learned. And it's really nice to hear it from someone that I trust, but also someone that I know has a good head on their shoulder in what they're trying to achieve. And I respect that about you. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. I would add it's a series of small choices. You wake up in the morning and you say, I can wake up 30 minutes before and have a small workout, or I can sleep in. I can order out, or I can make my own food. I can drive everywhere, or I can get outside with my daughter and go for a walk. Right? They're all small little choices, but they add up, right? 30-minute workout every day in the morning goes a long way. May not seem like much when you're doing 20 push-ups, 20 squats, 20 sit-ups, but the additive effect is massive. Hey, you could tell someone, hey, you're going to lose 0.5 pound a week. They're like, what? That won't get me anywhere near my goal. That's 26 pounds in a year.
Have you ever looked at a pound of fat, what it actually looks like?
Yeah, but that's 26 pounds in a year. You commit yourself to a 2-3 year process. That's 78 pounds lost, 52 pounds lost, whatever it is. Big number. But it's the time. It's the commitment. It's the dedication to change the habits day in and day out. Commit when it's the hardest. On everybody can do things when it's fun. But it's
or when you have motivation.
Yeah. Right?
It's easy when when you're high motivation.
Yeah. No. Like motivation doesn't exist on a cold, dark day in January.
When you want to sleep in.
No. You need discipline. There's no such thing as motivation. It's discipline. Motivation is just a myth. You have to have discipline. This like internal belief that, oh no, I'm going to do the thing that I despise the most in order to get to the place that I need to get to. Yeah. Plain and simple. That's just what it is. That's how I live my life every day. Every single day, that's what it is. I stick to something, I go after it, and day in and day out, I just chip away. Some days are fucking awesome. Some days are rough. And for the most part, it just ebbs and flows. But no matter what, I wake up with that same intensity. This is how I'm going to tackle my day.
Yeah. And yeah, like the whole motivation thing too. I usually say it's the feeling, just like anything else. You're happy, you're sad, you're angry, you're worried.
It's fleeting.
Yeah, it doesn't always last.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of those things that, and I've said this before, motivation's awesome when it's there.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. It is super easy to do everything you do, but it's not something that's going to always be there forever.
Yeah.
So I try to even educate people, when you have that, really try to build a foundation in that time period. Like build something that you can now, that's so long lasting, that within that foundation, when you have that motivation, that when you lose that motivation, that foundation is so strong that it doesn't matter if there's motivation or there not. That foundation is there, and that long lasting, habits that you've created is still there.
Yeah, I agree.
It just makes such a big difference, and from the sounds of it, that's what we're both chatting about, is that whole reflection on the motivation and that feeling. You
gotta really dig in deep and just love to do the hard shit. You have to love to do the hard shit. I think there's something about that that's really unique.
It's something that is definitely a habit and built over time. I think that we as humans, we won't actually ever get to, per se, and this is just my belief, and I would love to jump in if this is something that you would like to add, but I don't believe we ever get to our quote unquote perfect self. I feel like there's always going to be things that we pivot in life, no matter what it is. You might have got to the situation in your life where before you had your daughter, you're like, oh, this is awesome. But then you have your daughter and you're like, holy shit, life is like even better. Yeah. And then, something happens and it's like, oh man, like, okay, how do I get to this point? But I feel like we're always in growth, and that there's always going to be something to work on, but it doesn't mean you also can't enjoy it.
Yeah. I couldn't, you said that perfectly. I love that. We're always in growth. There's always a pursuit to something. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, the idea of the journey. Yeah. Right. Enjoy it, because you're always just trying to get better. That's the real gold, right? It's not what you're gonna get to, it's getting there. It's the process of getting there, day in and day out. I'm gonna keep going after it. Yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna see Jeremy. I'm gonna go to my workouts and I'm gonna be committed to my plan, or I'm gonna go to my appointment. I'm going to stick to what is making me feel good, because that is the goal. As long as that shift is there mentally, you can overcome a lot of things, because the world is filled with what you can't and how bad you are, and somebody always telling you what you need, what you're missing. Just dial it back, set a goal, set a path, and every day wake up and just try your best to put forth your best effort and go towards something, one foot in front of the other, each 24 hours, each day.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. At the end of the day, it's just, slowly building off of that.
And I will add, like, some 24 hours are harder for other people than they are for some.
Yeah.
Some are easier. Some have access. I hate that stuff. We each have the same 24 hours in a day. No, we don't. We don't. The 24 hours are different for each person.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, you do what you can with what you have. It's a mindset more so than a results or something that is tangible that you can touch. It's the intangible items, right? It's the stuff that you can't see, right? What's your mindset? What's your approach? I think that's what separates, good from great. That's what separates so-so and average from someone willing to do the hard work to get to where they need to get to and not worrying about the time or the destination and really focusing on each and every single step along the way to that said destination.
I there's actually a pivot that I want to make here, because you had mentioned everyone doesn't have the same 24 hours. And, I want to get a little bit, I know this is going to be a big pivot, but I just want to hear your take on, a little bit more on how you're raising your daughter, but also to your cultural background as well, and how that has either changed your mindset or changed your shift on how you parent or how you grew up. And I just want to hear a little bit more of that backstory, because personally, as long as we've known each other, I know we haven't really touched on this. And I think this would be a really good shift, talking about the same 24 hours and how things have really shifted for you as an individual as you've grown up, but also as being a parent as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Iraqi by descent. Both my parents are Iraqi. I wasn't born in Iraq. I was born in Kuwait, another Gulf region country. I was born there because my parents were living there at the time, because Iraq was under a political regime that just wasn't favorable for my family. And then in 1990, the Gulf War happened, the first Gulf War, and we had to flee. And luckily, we were able to escape, found refuge in Malta, which is a country off of the coast of Italy. Lived there for 4 years. Unfortunately, you can't get citizenship in Malta. It's because it's a small country. So
I didn't know that.
yeah. So we were able to come to Canada, and my dad and my mom started again. And my brother and I, at the time, we were just, very oblivious to.
How old were you at this time?
I was 7 when we came to Canada. My brother was 4.
Okay.
So, we watched our parents struggle to make ends meet, but they always took care of us. And, the upbringing was always rough, hard. Hard work was not negotiable. You just always had to bust your ass. Mm. And I saw that with my dad and my mom, like day in and day out. It was just constant work, constant sacrifice for a better life, for a better life, for a better life. And that allowed my brother and I to really push ourselves to achieve the things that we did. And I'm lucky enough that I had these opportunities. You don't choose the parents you're born into or the circumstances. You just are born, and you hope that with a stroke of luck that you have incredible parents that love you and want the best for you. And so, yeah, I was pushed from a very young age, and and that's just how I grew up. Fast forward now with my daughter, I think the hardest part is I've achieved a certain level of success, and it's finding that balance, because she doesn't know struggle like how I do. Mm-hmm. She knows certain luxuries.
Yeah.
Like simple things. Like she has her own room. I didn't. I shared one with my brother for a long time before I had my own room. We shared a bathroom. She has her own bathroom. Simple things, like I can afford my daughter certain luxuries and certain things that I just never got as a kid. And I think having a balance between understanding struggle is a really challenging thing now as a parent, because you fight between manufacturing struggle for them, simple things like, no, you're not going to buy this because yes, theoretically you can. We can buy it for her, but we're not going to, because it's like she hasn't earned a certain amount of, cred to be able to get it. Whereas that wasn't a conversation when I was a kid. It was just like,
nah,
it's not happening.
yeah.
Like my brother and I would always joke, like, oh man, let's go for like burgers or Subway or something. My dad would always be like, oh, I'll make you the best Subway at home. And we're like, oh God, we don't want that. I just want someone other than my dad to make it for me. Right. But you look back at it and you're like, yeah, you just grew up in a different way. And it's like, I just want to make sure that she understands that hard work is really important. I think sometimes when life is a little bit good, you think it'll always be good, or you get misconstrued to the ease of life. And I think finding that balance with her, teaching her struggle, making her work hard. I'm not a big fan of participation ribbons. You make mistakes, that's wrong. Like
that's not the real world.
That's not the real world, right? I try not to glorify that stuff, and I really just try to pivot back to, hey, focus on the work. Take joy and take pride in what you're learning and how you're learning it, the process. So nothing makes me happier than when my 4-year-old goes, Daddy always says it's not about right and wrong, it's about the process. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's working.
I was like, it's working, right? So that to me is always the focus. I really like to live my life by that idea. I'm always in process of something, going after something, trying my best to work towards something, rather than I want this and I want that and I want X and I want Y. It's more, what can I do each day to make myself better each and every day? And the hopes is that accumulates into great things in the future.
Do you find that, I know you had mentioned growing up it was different than how your daughter's growing up. Do you find that hard sometimes to pivot on creating more challenges for her? Like, do you find that you have to almost create a little bit more of a challenge sometimes?
For sure.
Because of the different opportunities and things that are happening?
Yeah, for sure. My biggest fear is that she's going to grow up soft, right? Like that's a big tangible fear for me, right? So for sure, I like to manufacture that a lot. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, okay, we're going to practice our writing, and she'll do something. I'm like, nope, that wasn't right. Do it again. And sometimes I'll say it like 7 times, and we'll get into it, right? But for me, it's very important for her to understand, like, I know it's something simple, and I'm, parents out there maybe going, this man is crazy. But for me, it's just really about, I don't care about the letter. I don't care about what she's writing. It's really just for her to understand something can always be better. You can always work towards something. Don't be satisfied. Keep pushing, keep moving, right? Don't stay static. Move the needle, even if it's a tiny little bit. It's worth it, right? The pursuit, that to me is really important. So I really try to preach that. I watched my dad do it. He was an engineer back home. And when he came to Canada, he couldn't work because his license wasn't accepted here. So my dad would do all kinds of odd jobs. He was painting in the morning. He'd work at a convenience store at night. Like, talk about watching The Simpsons and watching a pool and be like, yo, like this is kind of hitting home here. Yeah. But he went back to school. He learned. He would literally go to his job, and then he would go work with a mentor for free just to learn the language, understand. He got his licensing. My dad went back to his job here in Canada when I was in university. I came here at 7, second grade. So for 10, 11 years, my dad was literally providing for us while my mom raised us, and teaching himself, learning English, building the credentialing to get his license, and then finally went back to doing what he was doing when he was in his 20s. That was wild to me, absolutely wild. It's like someone saying to me, okay, you graduated school, you're a physio in your 20s for 4 years, and then boom, for 10 years, you're not going to do this because we're not going to recognize it. Find your own way. And you had 2 kids and you moved to a new country and you're learning a new language.
I was going to say a language barrier
right?
too. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden after 10 years, okay, you're an engineer again. Or you're a physio again. For me, if I was me hypothetically. I'd be like, man, would I even be strong enough to handle that?
Yeah.
I don't know. So that drives me a lot. The sacrifices that my mom and him made. And I go, man, okay, this shit can't be that hard. This stuff can't be this hard that I'm doing. Any adversity I face, I always go, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, if they were able to go through what they went through.
Yeah. I speak the language. I'm not in a foreign country. I have an education from a North American institution. I work in an industry where I have a good job. What the fuck am I complaining about?
Yeah.
So the stepping stone was already there for me. The standard was set. So it was really hard to push back on that. And I think for me, that's where I struggle because like my daughter's not going to have any of that because I gained the fruits of someone's labor, but I did it through hard work and through a arduous process. My daughter, it has to be a little bit more manufactured. You can teach someone certain things, but certain lessons need to be experienced. It's like what you're saying with your friend. You can talk about parenting all you want.
Yeah.
You can have hypotheticals, but your opinion's always removed by 1 degree because you yourselves don't have kids. Until you have that experience,
then you know.
You can form a different opinion because now you're living the experience. It's not a hypothetical anymore, right? You don't go to your nephew or your niece, pick them up for a couple hours and go, wow, this thing's easy. It's like, no, it's not how it works, man. It's a library book that you get to give back.
So based off these situations and things you bring up your daughter, what do you hope to teach her? Like what are the lessons? Because like you had said, you had gone through certain things as a kid. You see your parents do these things. Now you see your daughter growing up. She's seeing how you and your wife are handling things. Like what do you want her to take out of this situation that you might have not been able to take out of your situation, but she can take out of your guys' situation?
Yeah, first and foremost, be the hardest worker in the room. Just like Mamba mentality, just like constantly push, be relentless in your pursuit to do something because you have a catapulting framework here.
Like almost like an advantage in a way.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You don't have any setbacks.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have setbacks. You're going to have the benefit of every advantage that your mom and I can provide you. So if you mix that in with this relentless work to want to be good at anything, you're going to have success. Right? It's just the way you approach everything in life. And I try to do that from anything. The way she writes, the way she reads, the way she's in Taekwondo right now, the way she does her push-ups or her moves. Practice it. Be relentless. Be better. Take joy in what you can accomplish. Take joy in the things that you're capable of. If you teach that at a young age and you instill that level of confidence, kids, they just become unbreakable. And then they become adults that can do great things. And they become, members of society that are just confident individuals. Individuals that are very sure of themselves and the things that they need and the things that they want and what they need to do to be great and what they need to do to achieve good things and have success. It just limits the fear. Excuse me. It limits the fear of being influenced by all this garbage and noise that's around us all the time.
How do you find that now that you're in this position? Do you find do you feel there's an obligation to now give back to your parents? I know that might be a deep question, but
in what sense?
Just
by succeeding or like physically giving back?
Just both. Like, do you find that the sacrifices that they had made and now the position that you're in, do you feel a sense of obligation to give back to them in a certain way?
my parents have never made me feel like I need to give back to them physically, like in terms of like actual things.
Yeah.
But you better well damn believe that I live every day to try to succeed. I try to get as much success as I can on this earth to let them know that every sacrifice they made was more than worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That drives me every day. It drives me, but it haunts me too. Right? You know, I listened to a podcast one time where they were talking about like some people are driven by an external goal that's in front of them that they want to go after. And some are driven by this like fear of failure behind them, chasing them. So they want to run away from it as much as possible. And I would say that there really is like nothing exterior that I want to go after, but there's always this fear, this haunting in the back of my mind that I might fail. And that's what drives me every day, to run away from that as much as possible and out succeed as much as possible. That is how I view like the goals of my life.
Do you think your daughter will have that same feeling?
I don't know. I hope so. But
like, do you, based off of how things are going, like you said that there was struggle when growing up and you saw the struggle that your parents went through, and now you're saying that you had mentioned that your daughter is very fortunate enough to have opportunities that you guys weren't having able to have. So do you think, or is your hope for her to have a similar mindset, or I guess as a parent, where do you want to leave, I guess, a legacy in a way? Like, how do you want to really impact her to move forward in life? And you know, I know that you had mentioned once about your wife, she's counseling, correct?
Yeah.
So you guys are both in fields that are helping other people,
yeah.
right? So do you see that for your daughter? Do you hope that she kind of pursues something that it doesn't have to be physio, it doesn't have to be counseling, but something that helps others? Do you hope that of her, or do you see that? Like,
I hope that she's fulfilled.
Yeah.
What profession? I don't know. I just hope that I can give her the confidence to go after the things that will make her fulfilled. And you know, to be smart enough to understand what a hobby is and what a job is that makes money. Because that's the real world sometimes. Yeah. But, you know, I'd want her to have a healthy balance between things that, a drive that pushes her because she's scared of failure, but also to strive towards a goal and success. I think I'm a little bit more skewed towards the fear of failure part, just because I grew up with more of a scarcity mentality, just because of the environment that I was around. And that's something that I'm working on each and every day, to just, you know, take a moment to smell the flowers, so to speak. Yeah. I'm very much geared towards constantly thinking, pushing forward. Like, my mind's always racing, because I just don't ever want to fall backwards. I don't think that's healthy all the time. And so if I could give her a steady dose of it, a little bit, enough just to make sure that there's always a fire lit under her ass, so to speak. Yeah. I think, you know, she can accomplish great things as long as she executes and puts in that time and that effort in whatever she wants to strive for.
I want to touch on, I still want to talk about a little bit about this topic, but I'm going to ask you a very personal question here.
Yeah.
I know that there's, well, I don't know, but I've heard that there's very different relationships between a father and a daughter and a mother and a son.
Yeah.
And vice versa, right? You got mother, daughter, son, or father and son. What fears as a father do you have with having a daughter moving forward for her? What fears and what things that you see in society? Let's say that females are, or that girls are kind of advertised to, or things that are happening in the world now. Is there anything that really stands out that is that you have a fear of, and how do you think as a parent you can guide that to make sure those fears are not happening?
Okay. Oh man. It's a good question. I would say you know, I really would say what I'd really like to, I don't necessarily treat my daughter, I can't say I would treat my daughter any differently if I had a son. I think it's, to me, I don't really, I can't say for certain because I don't have a son, I have a daughter. I think the number one thing is I would tell her, I don't want her to grow up with this idea that she needs to depend on anybody. Not from the perspective of like not caring about relationships and not pursuing relationships and whatnot, but as a means of, your success is tied to you. If you want good things in your life, you have to go after them and get them. Mm-hmm. And I think those philosophies like subvert gender. They're not about boy or girl. They're about human.
Yeah.
They're a human entity. I think, you know, my wife and I always say, you know, our goal is to raise a good human.
Doesn't matter gender, doesn't matter any of those.
Yeah, she could come to me and say, I want to be a bricklayer. Like, I'm like, all right.
Dope.
Just, like, cool. Just bust your ass.
Yeah.
Like, go do what you push. If whatever you want to do, push towards wanting to be the best at doing it. Don't rely on someone else to define your self-worth. That was, if I were to name a big fear, it would be that she doesn't have the confidence to realize what she's capable of. And she outsources that to someone else to give to her. I think that would be probably the thing that I would fear the most.
As kids get older, they obviously make friends, social groups and things. How do you as a parent feel? I know that's not quite yet happening, but I don't know if you've ever even thought of this, but how as a parent do you feel you can be the influence that she doesn't feel like she has to listen to her peers and feel peer pressured? How do you feel like
she's not going to have friends? I'm going to be her only friend.
Only friend.
Yeah, you know, my wife always says the first 4 years are the most important to build their sense of self.
Yeah.
And you just hope that you've invested enough time and love and guidance. And at some point you got to let go and they got to make decisions. That's the real world. They're going to fuck up and they're going to succeed. And you hope the successes are massive and you hope the fuck ups are small. Mm-hmm. And that's it. It's like what we were saying before. Some things cannot be in your control.
Yeah.
Right? At certain points, they're going to need to make certain decisions and they're going to need to learn for themselves. You just hope that the time you've invested, the lessons you've given, the guidance that you've provided is enough that their internal self is a little bit of your voice. Mm-hmm. And they can always go back to that like, no, you know, I want to make my mom, my dad proud. That would be like a dream come true for me.
As a father, and, you know, I know you said kind of gender in regards to not having a boy, or you don't know if you would treat the daughter, the son differently in the way of parenting, but how much do you feel you need to protect your daughter as someone who
yeah, like how do I go back to these like certain gender roles? Oh man, I remember one time we took my daughter to a community center and she was playing with these big blocks. She was like stacking some things up and I'm watching from afar. I try not to hover. Both my wife do. We just like to watch from afar. Let her play.
Just make sure that
let her interact. Like, I mean, like, I hate helicopter parents. I think it's a little too obsessive. You know, some people would call me a helicopter parent, but fuck them. So we were watching her play, and she's having a good time. She's playing and she's looking at us and she's smiling. She's like, look what I'm building. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. She's building. And then this one kid comes and just like knocks everything over. And I was just like, I'm going to go beat the shit out of this kid. Right?
And you're like, he's 2. you remember, you're like, oh, he's 2 years old.
Oh, I didn't remember. My wife did.
Yeah.
So anyways, I go there and I was just like, she was really upset. And then, she just, it's crazy. She just looked at it and went, whatever. Picked up the blocks, started building again. Didn't even bother. And, sometimes you just realize that your kids are a lot more resilient than you think they are. And it's actually you. You're the one who's bothered by this.
Yeah.
You're the one who's pissed off that someone irritated you. But this little kid just took her energy and put it into, nah, I'm not going to let this kid get in my way. I'm just going to build again. And I'm sitting there going, I want to beat the shit out of this kid. Right? Like you learn a lot of amazing things from your children. And I think sometimes it's just like, okay, like this idea that I'm going to protect and it's like my kid's learning how to protect herself.
Yeah.
Mentally, she's understanding like, you're not going to stop me from building. I'm going to take the blocks and I'm going to do it again. And I just love that, right? It just took me out of this idea of like, oh, I'm the protector. It's like, she was like, I got it, Dad. Like, chill. I'm just going to build here.
And you're like, oh man, nice.
I'll tell you
take a walk.
I'll tell you one thing. I didn't go back and sit on that bench and watch from afar. I was right there. I was like, touch those blocks again, kid.
See what happens
next
time you even push one block over.
Right? I think that was also a big drive as to why my wife and I wanted to put her in some type of self-defense or martial arts. I think that was really important to me. I think the one thing I will say, I think females from a young age, they're boys roughhouse and things like that, and I'm not trying to gender normalize or anything like that. I'm just trying to say more often times than not, most boys tend to roughhouse and most girls tend not to. And I like to roughhouse with my daughter, and she'll always say, let's play rough and let's do this. I want her to get comfortable with this idea of like close to close physical contact, because you never know what can happen in the future. This idea that she can be comfortable with someone in her face and what to do rather than panic, I think is a very good life skill. That's very important for her to have. To be able to defend herself, to be able to have the confidence and the overwhelming, resolve to say, no, I'm confident. Like, you get too close to me, I know exactly what I can do to you, and not get intimidated. I think that was really important for me. And so that was one of the reasons why we thought martial arts was a good thing for her to do. To have fun, to build confidence, of course, but also to get to the idea like, yeah, somebody may grab you, but you're learning, and that's okay. You're going to know what to do. So in a real life environment, God forbid that ever happens, but that's not going to be the first time that it happens in her life,
I know, like I was saying, that there's going to be some parents listening to this, and I'm going to ask you another personal question.
Yeah, I mean, you've already done it, so why stop at one?
As a parent, what mistakes have you made that you've learned a really big lesson on, and how have you been able to adapt that?
Yeah, I would say, this is a mistake that I'm still making and trying my best to fix, is this idea that I can just control this human. Like, this is a human with their own thoughts, and feelings, and emotion. Man, my girl's got a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings, right?
I was just saying, like, off of this, she's awesome. Like I say, I always think it's so cool when a kid can have a conversation with me. And again, obviously, to an extent, I'm not going to start asking philosophical questions and things, but I always think it's so cool when a kid can, talk about subjects or answer questions, not be scared, and I really can see how you and your wife have done a really good job in that. So I want to say that.
I appreciate that.
Because that's I see a lot of kids on over the years. I've talked to a lot of kids, parents bring their kids in, and I found that to be really cool about your daughter, because this is the first time I met your daughter.
Yeah.
This is the first time I met your wife.
Yeah.
Right. And this is you hear all these stories and you hear all these things of people's kids or their significant others, and it's not until you actually meet them you can really have that, oh, I understand now.
Yeah.
Like I understand what he was saying every single time. And going off what you were saying about the mistake, and I'm put quotation mistake because
no, it's a fair term. You're right. You're always making a mistake. Like you're always trying to learn from how. Like there's no rubric to this.
Yes.
No blueprint.
And do you, with this, do you find that this, you were saying it's kind of something you're working on now, but how do you think that's changed, that you've become now aware? Because I think the big thing a lot of times is the first thing is you have to become aware of it to actually know how to know it's something that it's maybe affecting your day to day.
Yeah.
So how did you come to that awareness, or how did you, see that for yourself when it wasn't so obvious at first?
That's all my wife. That's the counselor.
She's like, Sam.
Yeah. She's like, listen, you idiot. If we're gonna do this right, you better not fuck up and drag me down. Oh no, for sure. In this department, she's MJ and I'm Scottie Pippen, 100%. We always try to focus on like how our job is to help our daughter work through her emotions. It's crazy. Like we get angry, we get happy, we get excited. As a young human, those are all incredible, like overwhelming neurological responses. And sometimes they have a really hard time just like regulating that. Hence the tantrums and the ups and downs. You can go from 1 minute to screaming your lungs out to, oh, look, a bird. Like that's just how they are. And when you start to understand that you're trying to guide her through something that she's having a hard time understanding because she's learning about her body and learning about her brain and learning about her feelings, it's actually, you really start to take a step back and go, okay, I'm getting pissed because this is about me. I'm getting annoyed because I'm finding it inconvenient that things are messy and she's yelling and things like that. They say kids are your mirror. It's true. Right? So you have to really check yourself. And that's the thing I'm constantly working on. When you start to become aware of that, you start to say, okay, it's not about me. And now I'm going to service what they need. What do you need? How do we regulate that? It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel happy. These are normal things to experience. Fear is okay. Just all this stuff, it just starts to kind of like, you really just help them get through it. And that helps them build confidence. They can say, oh, I'm having a tantrum, but they're not worried about like, do mom and dad love me?
Yeah.
They do. I'm just pissed, right? To something as simple as like, here's a stranger I'm meeting for the first time. I'm going to have a full conversation with them because I'm confident, right? I'm confident. Mom and dad talk to me. They look at me in the face. They mimic the things that I'm trying. We try to mimic the things that we want to bestow onto her. And so that becomes really, really important. And so your kids are your mirror, and you just learn more. You learn a lot about yourself as a parent. I'm learning about that all the time. The first, it's hard. Parenting is hard work. It's not easy. It is the biggest mental mind fuck in the world. Like they will take everything out of you. It is not easy, right? It's not Instagram. Look at my child. No, it's hard. It's day in and day out. You're responsible for a human being. You're responsible for raising that human being. So it takes a lot out of you, but at the same time, you really have to commit yourself to a level of selflessness that is required in order to ensure that what comes first is your child's physical, mental, emotional well-being.
Playing off that, I know this has been, nowadays it's considered a touchy subject, but about gender roles when having a kid. And I want to ask this question not specific to that, because I believe that.
Don't trap me now.
Yeah, right. I believe that both parents can have obviously a different like I'm just gonna be very personal. I grew up just with my mom.
Yep.
No dad in the picture. Like I've never met my dad, and some of you listening now have probably never known that about me.
Yeah.
But I've never met my dad. So my mom literally raised me to who I am to this day.
Yeah.
How do you feel that your roles as parents differ day to day? Like, what do you feel like you're very good at that maybe, let's say, your wife has a harder time with, or maybe she has a really good time at helping with your daughter in something and you have a harder time? Like, where do you find that your strength as a parent comes, and where do you find your wife's strengths come as a parent?
My strength is that I'm very structure oriented, very routine based. I really want to preach to her that repeat, stick to something, focus. I'm okay fighting the battles. I'm okay butting heads. I'm okay with the screaming when it's like towards something, because I know that once she gets past that, she can see her success and she has that confidence. And my wife is a beacon of patience. She is patient. She is calming. She is understanding. She can just take 10 and bring it down to 2 like that, effortlessly. Like I envy that ability to do that. I don't have that. So we work very well together. I feel like our daughter has a very well-rounded approach from both of us. Would I say that those belong to a specific gender? No, I wish I was patient. Like, I wish I was, and I'm sure, my wife would say she wished she was a little bit more structured, but I'm not wasting my time wishing.
Yeah.
I'm working towards it, being better at it. I'm acknowledging it, and I can have honest conversations to say, I suck. What can I do? How can I be better? And we have those conversations. It doesn't always go smoothly. It doesn't always go well, but for the most part, we're committed at trying to be better. And that's all I need. It's just a commitment.
I'm going to ask you
another personal question.
This is all, in general, it's all been personal, but do you plan on having another kid?
I don't know. Get in line after my mom, my mother-in-law, my dad.
Do you think it's hard nowadays to have 2 kids in this world that we're living in?
I can't speak to that. I think that's really personal with each individual, because some people it's about finances, other people it's about time, other people, they want to but they can't physically. For us right now, I just think we're in a good place. We have conversations about it. Sure. Don't get me wrong, but we're not at a place where we can make a definitive decision, yes or no. That's all I'm going to say about that.
As having a kid, though, in this world nowadays, what struggles have you come to when it comes to either, living in BC is not cheap nowadays?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. I think it's just one of those things where I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of smaller families now than you did in the past. I think you need 2 parents working, and that requires childcare. Yeah. And it also requires flexibility. And then there's expenses, food and hydro and internet, car, and insurance and gas, these things add up. So I think sometimes it's just people are not having less children because they want to. People are having less children because it's, I think, the responsible thing to do with respect to what you can provide for your child. Some people may agree with me, some people may disagree with me, and that's fine. There's different perspectives on that. For me, I try to approach things very numerically and very logically. It's all about, you want to be sure that the responsibility you're taking of bringing a human being into the world, you don't want to take it lightly. You don't want to take it lightly. It's not something to be taken lightly.
How does your health with your daughter compare? And I want to touch on this because we had chatted about how she has just started watching TV now.
Yeah.
Okay. And she's 4 years old. How does, I know, and we've already touched a lot on physical activity. You go for walks. She does taekwondo, soccer, things like that. How does nutrition and mental health play with having a daughter? And how do you guys pivot on what's appropriate? Like she wants a cookie. Let's say, like, how do you what's some tips or things that you as parents have had or have helped? Because I know this will really value some parents on how to manage certain situations when it comes to, it might be just easier to just give her the iPad.
Yeah.
Or, it might be just easier to give her the 2 cookies than having that fight back and forth about, like, how have you guys been able to manage that? Because I don't hear a lot of parents not have their kids watch TV. And I'm someone who actually thinks that's awesome. I honestly think that the TV, the iPads can actually harm. And I'm not saying that if that's what you've done now that your kid's messed up. I'm just saying I respect that. And I think that's very hard to do nowadays. I think it's a lot easier to give them the iPad. It's a lot easier to give them the phone at a young age because it's like, okay, here you go. And then I can go do my thing. So how have you guys been able to really like hone in on those 2 things when it comes to high processed foods and also to the TV and the electronics and the stimulation?
Yeah.
How's that really been an impact for you guys, and how have you been able to pivot with that as parents?
Food is an easy one. She eats what we eat. So she's always seen us eat food that we make at home.
Yeah.
We cook, we do great fresh food, fresh vegetables, fresh produce. Like that's been from a young age, like a very young age. Like we introduced vegetables before we introduced fruits. This girl to this day will eat raw broccoli and pasta and loves it.
Yeah.
Prunes are one of her favorite things. We started that early, and for us it was about just food habits, right? Food is not a reward. You don't eat this and you get a reward of that. And I think it's made introducing desserts and stuff like that really stress-free because you're not worried about your kid just like consuming all this stuff. She'll eat a full meal. She'll want an apple. She'll want grapes. She'll want raisins. She'll want broccoli, cauliflower. She'll eat that stuff. So I don't care if she wants a dessert. To me, I think that's just a healthy urge. Everybody has a little bit of a sweet tooth. It's fine. It's about building a relationship with food. And I think from an early age, we were able to do that by introducing things that we ate. We never made food about, this is what mommy and daddy eat. This is what you're going to eat.
Yeah, like everyone eating separate meals.
Exactly. Here's our, chicken breast with vegetables, and here's your mac and cheese because it's just easy and it tastes good and it appeases her taste buds. It's like, no, we're all eating pasta. We're all eating chicken. We're all having, I made shrimp with a coconut curry sauce yesterday, and she hoovered it. Yeah. Loved it. Then she had an apple afterwards as a snack, and that was dinner. Yeah. She loved it. And we love that because we all ate together as a family, and she loves that. The TV part, I think, we were lucky because it was circumstance. I was saying to you earlier, like before we started,
yes.
She was born a couple months before COVID. When COVID hit, people were shut down. You're just interacting with your kid. Yeah. We spent most of our time outside, walking, interacting, playing, and when you're at home, we just had music on. So we never had the screen. It was, we never, like, she was not exposed to screens probably until she was like maybe 3, 2.5, 3. And it was at minutes at a time. You could have the TV on and she wouldn't even look at it now. And now we introduced it just as a means to educate, like children's programming to teach about good manners or teach about activities, numbers, letters. And it's no more than 30 minutes a day, if that. Sometimes it's like 3 times a week. But you build enough of a foundation that she has other aspects that she can go to that still encourage her. Imaginative play, puzzles, action figures, drawing, coloring, writing, words. We just try to expose her to as much stimulus as possible that isn't passive, that she can interact with. And that really has made this process quite easy. And, the other part of it is we're okay fighting that battle. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to a restaurant as a family and we understand the waiter comes, we're going to make our decision, we're going to eat 45 minutes and we're going to bounce.
It's not going to be 2 hours.
It's not going to be 2 hours. You just can't do that with a child. We're okay with that. Mm-hmm. But it's more okay for us to just be like, no, she's with us, right? She's looking at the waiter or waitress. She's making her order. She's saying please. She's saying thank you. She's eating. We're talking. And then we leave. And then as she gets older, she understands that, okay, she builds up more of a prowess. She sits still for longer.
Yeah.
She doesn't need as many things. She can carry conversation a little bit. You're not relying on a device to parent your child. You're allowing yourself to take on that challenge. And to the parents who do, no beef, no problem. Circumstances are different for each individual.
It comes back to that 24 hours.
Yeah, and I'm not here to judge. This is just what works for me and what I wanted. It's not better, it's not worse. It's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for us as a family. What anybody else does, it's their prerogative. It could be really good for them. I'm in no position to ridicule that or judge that or demean that, or by no stretch of the imagination do I think I'm going to sit here and get on my, soapbox and say, I know everything about parenting. Fuck, I don't. I just know that this is what I wanted and this is what we work towards. Yeah. And it's working pretty good so far,
Well, and that's why I actually wanted you to answer that question. It wasn't because I'm trying to prove anyone else wrong.
Yeah.
It's because I know from the conversations we've had, the values that you and your wife have when it comes to raising your daughter. And I think those are very healthy habits and relationships that has been built. So I just wanted you to vocalize it in a way that is more understanding. And if there's any parent listening or anything, the goal was to just get a different point of view.
Yeah.
Sometimes hearing how another parent does things, and again, like I said, everyone has a different 24 hours, but sometimes that just can be the click that, oh, hey, you know what? Maybe we should try to introduce more of a meal with our daughter, like all of us eating. Because that's actually, it's funny that you say that, is sometimes when I talk to parents for their nutrition, I'll say, try one day a meal, all of you eat the same food.
Yeah.
Because I'll have a mom, let's say, come to me and be like, I have chicken broccoli, my husband has steak and lasagna, my daughter has craft dinner, and then my other daughter has say so-and-so. And I'm like, hey, you know what? If that is what needs to be done, like, okay, I understand. But try doing one meal where everyone's having the same food. Yeah. Because the encouragement, like you said, if your kid is seeing you eat a certain way, more than likely they're going to want to also eat in that certain way. Oh, they see mom and dad, or they see mom or they see dad eating a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And it slowly builds that. And, it sounded like you guys started very, very young. So that's all she really knows.
Exactly.
Right. But if you're someone listening and you're someone who didn't start like that, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're not here. We're not saying that you did anything wrong. It's just more like, maybe try this. If this is something that you've been having a struggle with, a hard time getting your kid to eat certain quote unquote healthier foods, try starting doing this.
Yeah.
And I always these questions I always ask always tie in for a certain reason. And I just really respect you being open about it, because I know sometimes it's not easy to be the center of, okay, this is how I do something as a parent, because everybody's situation is different.
For sure.
And thank you for doing that. My kind of, to end it off here, I just want to leave a situation here with me and Sam that is not the most common situation, where me and Sam technically don't work together, but I feel like Sam is someone that I also have a partnership with in a way. We're not under the same name, but we've built a relationship where
it's based on a common philosophy.
Yeah. And if anybody's ever, worked with me, they know that if anything comes down to physio related, or, I'm going to admit, I don't know the body as well as Sam does. And I'm okay to admit that. We're not here competing against each other. At the end of the day, we both have a common goal in helping people. And, where can someone find you? I know I see you at Health One in Mission, but where's someone who can find you? How would they contact you? You don't have to put your cell number, but
yeah.
The number of maybe the clinic, What do you do on a weekly basis where if somebody's ever looking for some help, they can find you?
Yeah, so I work in the Mission Clinic, obviously, and I work for Health One in the Surrey Clinic as well. The Mission Clinic, if you search Google Health One Mission, Health One Surrey, you'll get to the contact page. You can contact us, book an appointment with myself. I'm in Surrey Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm in Mission Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mission phone number is 604-287-5499. Phone number in Surrey, I think, is 604-498-4818. I also work for a mobile company where I service kind of the lower mainland, namely White Rock and Vancouver. Company's called Physio2U. That's physio, the number 2, and the letter U. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but if you search it via Google, it's like the first search that you'll get, the first result that'll come up. And then I just take on private clients one-on-one. People can reach out to me. Just
email. Do you have an email?
I do have an email. I can share that with you. I'm still
just for cases if I don't want to put out your personal where it's gonna like you're gonna like all these messages, but is there maybe an email that is more of a, I guess, a professional, not a personal email?
I don't have one set up as professional right now.
Let's just say call the
clinic.
Or you know what? How about this? If somebody wants personally,
contact
me,
and you can get them in touch with me. No problem.
Yeah, we'll do it
because you have my contact info.
Yeah,
I'm not going to share that out to the masses.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna. I won't put out his cell number. No, but no, I really appreciate Sam. You letting us come here in your house.
More than welcome.
It was a pleasure to be able to chat with you and kind of put you on the hot seat on some questions, but
I love it.
I just wanted to say thank you, and that this podcast will be on Spotify. This is episode 7. And if you have any questions again regarding this, you can reach out to me at upnorthathletics on Instagram or email me upnorthathletics@gmail.com. Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it, my man.